last few years, Apple has been bringing an iPhone every single year. There's been years where we've had some really significant upgrades and other years where the upgrades have been maybe on the more minimal side. We've seen a lot of implementations to the iPhone in general. Now we have a multitude of buttons, including the action button and the new camera control on the 16 Pro. We've had the dynamic island, which has replaced the notch on previous models. So a lot of things have changed and have been improved overall in the iPhone formula. But with a new iPhone coming out every single year, the question always remains, when and where should you upgrade, and when is the best time for you to actually consider changing your phone? Now, to kind of better answer that question myself, I decided to pick up the iPhone 16 Pro this year and review it, and I've had it for the better part of the last few weeks. Now, when I say that, I mean that I've been using it and actively trying to understand and see how is it so much better than the last phone that I've had. To put you in a little bit of context, the phone that I've been rocking for the better part of the last few years has been the 13 Pro Max. Now, the 13 Pro Max is the third iPhone that I've ever picked up. The first iPhone being the iPhone 7. Absolutely love that phone. I think it had a really good formula overall, good form factor. First upgrade from the iPhone 7 was to the iPhone X, which is also commonly known as the iPhone 10. Now, the iPhone X, another really good improvement in contrast to the iPhone 7. Bigger screen, nice newer form factor, and we had now the Face ID. So there was reasons for me to upgrade. From the iPhone X, I upgraded to the 13 Pro, and initially I had the smaller one, and I have upgraded to the Pro Max in the process, only because I wanted a bigger form factor and just naturally more battery. And that brings us to today, where I still have the 13 Pro Max. I still believe this is one of the best iPhones and one of the best values that you can get up until this point. And it's also one of the reasons why I haven't necessarily upgraded to any of the iPhones in between. Naturally, now having my hands on the 16 Pro and having tested it out for the last few weeks, I want to give you guys a bit of an understanding and perspective on kind of an honest review on what I think on the 16 Pro. Now, obviously, before we get into anything, it's the best iPhone that Apple has to offer at the moment, and it's going to be the same thing next year and the year after that. So I want you guys to kind of keep that in mind. But for the time being, the iPhone 16 Pro, as of right now, at the end of 2024, where does it stand? So first and foremost, it's important to understand that the iPhone itself is just a recurring formula that gets better every year. The iPhone itself doesn't necessarily change or doesn't necessarily have a completely new revamp. And that's exactly the case with the 16 Pro. It's not necessarily all that different from the 15 Pro. Naturally, it has one new color, being the Desert Titanium, which I have here in my hands. The 16 Pro definitely feels more like a 15 Pro S. It only adds some new features on top of the existing formula of the 15 Pro. Those new features being a slightly bigger screen, so going from 6.7 to 6.9, which is a very, very minute detail. It's not something crazy, nor is it an exponential difference. I want to talk about camera control in itself. This is a button that's been added to the phone that gives you quick access to the camera and just overall recording option. In my testing of the 16 Pro, I generally feel like I've had an evolving relationship with the camera control. There's been moments where I've absolutely loved this button, and there's been other moments I've just really not enjoyed. The inconvenience of sometimes having a button that's lower on the screen instead of the power button, it just makes it easier for me to always press the camera control instead of actually reaching above for the power button. Now, this isn't necessarily a bad thing. It just means that I can access the phone in a different way. Naturally, the camera control will open camera, but I will point something out. If you want to use it kind of like a power button in the same way that I have been doing, as long as your screen is not open, you can definitely use it as a power button. Now, that's kind of how I've been using the camera control, but for the most part, when you use the camera control in a recording setting or in a setting where you actually want to take some pictures, it is kind of interesting. It has some value to it. Now, naturally, it'll allow you to zoom or just to change between lenses and all of that stuff. So the actual value and functionality of the camera control is more minimal than anything. Now let's look at the slightly bigger screen. It's something very minimal, and again, kind of in the same range as the camera control. A new addition, but that doesn't bring necessarily all that much more value, only just making your quality of life a little bit better. For example, in contrast to like the iPhone 13 Pro Max, which is a slightly older phone with thicker bezels and a smaller form factor, you'll definitely notice a difference when you're switching, for example, from that phone to this one. The screen definitely covers basically the whole body of the phone. That is nice. It's great for content consumption. It's great for scrolling on social media, and it just makes you feel like you're getting more out of the screen and more out of your phone in general. So I do have to appreciate that. So now what does all that mean? So yes, you're getting a new camera control button, you're getting a slightly bigger form factor and a slightly bigger screen. So your overall experience with the iPhone just becomes a little bit more flexible because you're allowed and you're able to do more things and just kind of create new ways of using your iPhone. But naturally, the overall point and the overall consumption and all of the things that you do with your iPhone are relatively always going to be the same. You're always going to be scrolling on social media the exact same way. You're probably going to be taking pictures the exact same way. And if you're not a content creator, then most of the times you don't even need the Pro. You don't need all that extra camera performance. For those of you picking up the new iPhone 16 Pro Max, this is the new tactile woven case from PITAKA. These right here are part of the new glow in the dark collection. These new cases have been carefully crafted around the new design of the 16 Pro Max, making sure it maximizes the use of the new camera control and bigger screen. The new durable and ultra slim profile adds protection to the iPhone whilst taking only minimal space. What I appreciate from PITAKA is that all of their products have a green footprint, which makes your purchase a conscious one. With these cases, you can use old MagSafe accessories like the Mag Easy Card Sleeve or the Mag Easy Grip 2, as these cases offer full support for MagSafe accessories. With this new collection, you also get a series of really interesting stickers that you can use to customize other products. But my favorite part about these cases is that they are glow in the dark. Now this is seriously cool. It adds such a nice effect to your case, and it just makes you stand out from other people and just gives your case such a unique feel to it. I want to thank PITAKA for making this video possible. For those of you who are interested, I've left a link with all of the information down in the description down below, so feel free to grab yourself a new case for your new iPhone. Let's get back to the video. Performance wise, this is definitely the best that I've ever experienced on an iPhone. The new chip is absolutely impressive and it handles tasks like a charm. Whether you spend most of your time scrolling on social media or consuming content online, which usually tend to be some of the easier tasks to process for the iPhone, it handles it like an absolute beast. It really does. It loads up content extremely quick. That's something that I usually consider in terms of the performance of an iPhone. I want to know how fast it is, how much I can rely on it, because if I'm always waiting for the iPhone to keep up with me, that just means that it's not necessarily the right phone for me. Naturally, with a performing phone or a performing device in general, you're going to be taking a closer look at the battery life. You want to know if it's going to be reliable, if you can count on it for the whole day. For the last few generations of the iPhone, that hasn't been a problem. I think a lot of people are very content and satisfied with the battery life on iPhones in general. Pro Max and just the larger iPhones in general, whether you're looking at the Plus or a Max, it's just going to be your best bet, and that's where I would put my money in. If you want more battery out of your iPhone, this one definitely lives up to that. Of course, depending on your usage, it's going to vary, it's going to fluctuate, but for the most part, a full day's worth is going to be more than just fine. Now, there's two things from the iPhone 15 Pro that are returning to this iPhone, which is Dynamic Island and Action Button. Now, if I can be honest with you guys, I really don't think that the action button is of any use. It's kind of cool. It allows you to have multiple features. If you maybe want to have a quick access to, for example, camera, you can do that. But now you have camera control, so that kind of defeats the purpose of doing that. You can actually activate it to have a shortcut. Maybe you want to open an app quickly, so you want to set it up to, I don't know, let's say you want to use it for Notion. You could do that, or you maybe want to open up notes. In that case, it's fine. But me, I just typically keep it on the ringer silent. It's just that easy. I mean, I never had an action button on a previous iPhone, and I never had the need. So switching over to the Dynamic Island, that's also something that I think is a little bit more of a gimmick more than anything. It definitely looks nicer than a notch. It interacts with the phone a little bit better. There's some sort of harmony when you have the Dynamic Island. For example, you're using it when you're playing music, you can just swipe up and it has the music at the top. You can interact with it quickly. It adds a little bit of functionality, but for the most part, I think it really just looks nicer than anything else. I would rather have the Dynamic Island than the notch because it just looks better, and I kind of have that satisfaction when I see the Dynamic Island interacting with, for example, music or the maps. But that's just it. With all that said, that brings me back to my initial question. When's the time for me to upgrade to a newer smartphone? So I've been personally very content with the 13 Pro Max. The only complaint I would have to say would be very much the battery life. And that's something that is also fixable. I could just go to the store, or I could just go to one of these, tech shops and ask them to swap out my battery. And that would potentially fix my problem. But there's also some things that I just don't get with the 13 Pro Max, right? I can't shoot ProRes quality that I can on the 16 Pro. I don't have quick access to camera like I do with the camera control, and I don't have that personal satisfaction of the Dynamic Island. As an argument, I really don't believe that that's a reason for you to upgrade because you like a Dynamic Island and it looks a little bit better. For me, that wasn't enough to actually upgrade. With that being said, if I actually had a proper interest and a desire to fully continue with the 16 Pro, it would basically only be for the performance. It has really good performance. It holds up really well, and I actually have noticed a difference in terms of how I've been using my 13 Pro and the 16 Pro. It's just more snappy, it's faster, it's naturally better, right? Because the chip inside the A18 is just an absolute powerhouse at the moment. But overall, in the grand scheme of things, I think it really comes down to personal usage and personal interpretation, right? you can upgrade every single year to the latest iPhone and you might not get that satisfaction, but I really do believe that if you wait it out and you upgrade every so often, you're gonna get more out of that upgrade. It's just gonna be more worth it. Plus, let's be honest, the last few iPhones have generally been really good. If you're rocking 13 Pro, 14 Pro, 15 Pro, even 12 Pro, you're basically still up there with pretty much everyone. The iPhones are keeping up the same way. They're powerful, you have a triple camera setup, and it's all there. You're just getting everything. So ultimately, I really do believe the 16 Pro is more of a 15 Pro S than anything. This is why I will not be continuing with the 16 Pro for the remainder of the year. I'm actually kind of excited to see what's going to happen with the next iPhone. I think they're moving away from yearly upgrades, so this is going to be a good time for me to push my 13 Pro all the way to the next iPhone. And there's rumors of an iPhone Air next year. We'll have to wait and see.